and talk about the report card, and then we're going to have an opportunity to hear our leaders and our folks who are making the policy and directing what we do with the Bay talk to us about the future. So it's good to know where we are, but it's just as good, if not almost more important, to get an idea of where we're going. So I'd like to have Allison start with just describing the report card.
So welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. This is the first ever Severn River report card. As Fred said, thanks to the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science for helping, and to the Bay Trust for funding it. The overall grade is a C- for the Severn. It's a 45%. And that's based on 4 indicators: dissolved oxygen, submerged aquatic vegetation, yellow perch, and water clarity.
You know, what Allison showed you is some of the basic parameters that we use to actually calculate a score. I'd like to sort of talk about the second page in here, and you can see my quote. That's probably the most striking thing to me that we found when we went out there and started looking at this, is that we have this area up the Severn from what you can see out here, called Round Bay, where it really gets a lot wider than you see here. It's actually about 2 miles in diameter. It's a beautiful place. There are a lot of nice homes there. There's some beautiful wooded areas. And when we started making measurements over there, I was surprised to see a lot of problem areas down near the bottom where there were really very little oxygen. And to me, it was a big surprise, and I didn't believe it for a while, but we kept on getting these numbers and doing more measurements, and it really kind of was a repeatable phenomenon. And so, on the other hand, along the shoreline, we have some very nice examples of submerged aquatic vegetation. And it's very lush in this area. So you've got this quote from me here in the report card saying Round Bay is a great place where we really have the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good is the submerged aquatic vegetation. And it turns out that the Severn is in fact a poster child for SAV recovery. It really got wiped out during the 80s, but came back in the 90s. And really we have the best recovery of SAV in this area of the Chesapeake. So that's the good. And you know, I think it would be nice to understand exactly why it's good. And one of the things that we found in our monitoring is that the water clarity is really better. So that this little graph, if you can see, there's sort of a graph at the bottom of this map, and that shows the water clarity, and it shows you that the water clarity is much better in this area of Round Bay where the SAV is growing nicely. So that's one sort of clue about why we're doing better than a lot of other areas. We'd like very much for the water clarity to improve in the lower Severn out here. It's kind of struggling here. We have some SAV, but it's not really as good as up there. And then the top of this, above Round Bay, we really don't have any SAV at all. It really is the real ugly story, and it's not really conveyed in our scoring over here, is what happens at the bottom of Round Bay. Round Bay is about 2 miles in diameter. It's about 25 feet deep. And when we put our oxygen probe down there, it comes out like 0. Yeah, this instrument can't be right. It's 0, but then, you know, you raise it up, you raise up the probe near the surface, and it comes out fine. And it really turns out to be a dead zone. And when we went out, and that first year Suzanne was with us, we went down and we put our water sampling device down near the bottom, and you bring that water up, and you just open it up, and you can smell the hydrogen sulfide. Now, hydrogen sulfide is produced by bacteria that don't have enough oxygen. And so they are able to metabolize the sulfate in the water, and it converts to hydrogen sulfide, which is rotten egg smell. So you really have a dead zone. And hydrogen sulfide is not something that appears right away when the oxygen gets low. It really is a situation that occurs only when there's a persistent dead zone for a long period of time. So down near the bottom of Round Bay, in only 25 feet of water, we really have a dead zone. And that's conveyed in this map you see with the red area up here. It's not connected with the dead zone out in the bay. So the press loves to talk about the dead zone in the Chesapeake. This is not connected directly with that same dead zone in the bay. That's a much deeper situation, and you have a lot less chance for the oxygen at the surface to get mixed up with that deep down water in the deep part of the Chesapeake. Over here, it's only 25 feet of water. So this is the thing that is really the ugly And I think that it's a very interesting situation that is kind of alarming at the same time, and for me personally is certainly the most interesting thing and alarming thing that we found when we looked at Round Bay. Fortunately, the rest of the Severn is not quite that bad. There's certainly healthy population of worms and clams and things down at the bottom out here, but when you get up into Round Bay, that anoxia really wipes out all the things that can't get away. Fish can swim away. Clams, worms, amphipods, they die because they have no way to go elsewhere. So it's a situation which we hope will somehow get better. We don't understand it fully, but we need to think about how to improve our water quality.
Full batch. So for the Severn, we have one station down here. Now what Pierre just told us is that there's a dead zone in and of itself up here in Round Bay. We're not picking that up. And in fact, this is informing our Bay effort, because now we know we can't extrapolate from this point here, which is in pretty good shape, oxygen-wise, to the rest of the Severn, which we've been doing historically. So all of a sudden we realize we have to revise our models and our thinking for all of Chesapeake Bay. And it comes back to the problem that I've been stating somewhat facetiously in the following way. My name is Chesapeake Bay, and I have a nutrient problem. I need to come up with a 12-step program to resolving this problem, and that's, I'm hoping, what we're going to be hearing about how to do that. And I think the back of the newsletter starts that 12-step program. What are we going to do about this? One of the things that we will see on Thursday when we release our Bay-wide report card is some sobering news for the Severn, and that sobering news is that the Severn, which we group in with the South and the Magothy and the West Road, the western tribs of Lower Maryland, between Baltimore and the Patuxent, is that those rivers collectively represent the worst grade of Chesapeake Bay. Worse than the Patapsco River. Really sobering news. So this is where our problems are the most pressing, where we need the most action. Now, the other thing that's become apparent in our assessment of report cards, and we've not only done this for the last couple of years for Chesapeake-wide, but Michael Williams and others have gone back and looked since 1987. We've looked through the Bay program data, calculating the same methodology, the same approach. And what we've established is that there are trajectories. There are certain places that are good and getting better. There are certain places that are bad and getting worse. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're in this category here of bad and getting worse. Okay, so we got a bad trajectory, we got bad feedbacks. We have these ecological tipping points, and now we're having negative feedbacks. Watershed. What we've learned from that is that urban, agricultural, and mining negatively affects the streams throughout the Chesapeake watershed. So it's not just pointing fingers at urban development and sewage. It's not just pointing fingers at farmers. It's not just pointing fingers at the mining that goes in the west, up in the mountains. But it's all of that. And all of those collective stream degradation ultimately influences what we're seeing out here, which is not the picture that we want to be seeing. I think the scariest thing to see is that we're not going to be able to have swimmable, fishable water. I mean, if it rains here, you can't swim safely. And that's what it shows with the bacterial counts. The fish, if you can catch the few yellow perch that are there, you have to worry about mercury and other things in some of the different species. So swimmable and fishable needs to be a primary thing that we work towards. We have to be able to at least achieve that. And so, we can talk about dissolved oxygen and all these other esoteric things, but swimmable, fishable really count, and they count right here because people here would love to use the river in those fashions.
Here today. Today's report card, as you've heard, is really a product of an impressive group of committed individuals who are spending a lot of volunteer time helping to understand what's going on here in the Severn River. The data, though, in this report, I think, as we all see, is very sobering. Here at this beach in the summertime, me and many other parents will not let their kids go swimming after it rains. Here in the summertime, you will see brown tides and green tides. In fact, today we don't have them, I think, in large part because we've had not a lot of rain this year. We've got a nice northerly breeze here that's turning things up. But we come down here 1 month from now, and it's a very high likelihood that we will have either a brown or green tide that we can experience here at our dock.